Well, welcome back to the podcast here, the Washington Football Maniacs podcast. My name is Greg Sykes, along with my co-host Brandon Scott. And in this podcast today, we are going to be talking about a few things. We won't spend a lot of time on each thing, but we want to cover one thing, Cameron Curl. What do we do with him? Do we bring him back? Do we jettison him with all of the other free agents, or are we bringing any of those other free agents back? We'll also want to touch base, kind of give our summary on the hiring process with Dan Quinn's coaching staff. We want to kind of see where he's at with that, who he has left to hire. And folks, after all of that, just news and rumors as well. The rumor mill, of course, with the draft and all this stuff. So you're going to want to pay attention to this podcast. So with that said, let's get into it. So Brandon, a lot's been going on in Washington Commanders land. Of course, where we hired Dan Quinn, and then right away, Dan Quinn got to filling out his coaching staff. He's hired his special teams coach, who did have ties to the Redskins not too long ago. And of course, hiring our coordinators, Cliff Kingsbury being one of those coordinators. That was, I thought, a tremendous hire. Bringing over Joe Witt Jr. from the Dallas Cowboys. Certainly that was going to be a hire that I think everybody was kind of expecting with Dan Quinn. And also he's filling out, he's retaining the quarterback coach. But your thoughts, I feel like who we have left as far as, filling out the coaching staff, and this one is actually very important to me, the offensive lines coach. But what do you think about all the hires so far?
Man, I love him. And I didn't think I was at first, to be honest with you. But I mean, because everybody thought that, it's including the media. The media had us thinking that, Ben Johnson was a lock. It was guaranteed. We looked at other coaching candidates like Mike McDonald. Not a lot of buzz was with Dan Quinn. But, the reason I'm optimistic is that, and I'm definitely warming up to him, especially after the press conference, man. He's definitely a down-to-earth, likable guy, man. Definitely, a player's coach, but a player's coach who's going to hold his guys accountable, which is something that's desperately needed in D.C. with the Commanders. But I'm very excited. If you look at Dan Quinn, former head coach, took his team to the Super Bowl. Obviously, we know what happened with the Falcons and the Patriots and the blown lead, but he got his team there. He definitely showed that he can definitely get the best out of his guys. I felt like he did well in Atlanta, and now as far as the Commanders, I think it's a really good choice. Now, obviously, we're not anybody's first choice, but here's the thing: I'm definitely warming up to this him being hired. I like the hiring. I do. I like Dan Quinn. I think he'll do well. Cliff Kingsbury, man. As a head coach, the jury's still out, but as a coordinator, he has a long proven track record, and he's going to get the most out of the quarterback. Whether it's Sam Howell, whether it's somebody in the draft, we definitely going to see. But I think that was a really good move. I know a lot of people were kind of in flux about Eric Bieniemy, but to kind of touch base on that real quick, I just don't believe that Eric Bieniemy did enough. Look at the record, look at the performance of the offense. A lot of the struggles that Sam Howell had, I think it had a lot to do with Eric Bieniemy because he just overused him, in my opinion. I know you touched base on that, and I completely agree. So, looking back at the new hire, Cliff Kingsbury, he's going to get the most out of the quarterback. And again, notice I said if they roll with Sam Howell or go with a quarterback, because I don't think it's guaranteed that they go get a guy, even though they are in a prime position to get a guy. Trading back is a possibility, but I think it's a good move offensively. Looking at the defensive side of things, the defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr., I think, his track record isn't long, but he's been underneath of Dan Quinn. They have a great relationship. Dan Quinn is definitely going to show him the ropes of being a defensive coordinator. And I think that, I think he can be a good fit. He had to be developed a little bit as a coach, but I think that he's somebody who's a very intriguing matchup or a candidate at defensive coordinator. So I'm very happy. I'm going to give it A minus. I think that they definitely did a great job filling out the organization this year. Adam Peters was an excellent choice, in my opinion. Dan Quinn's going to be a really good head coach in DC. Cliff Kingsbury is going to get a lot of points out of his offense. And Joe Witt Jr., I think he's going to grow into the position, but I think he's an excellent choice at defensive coordinator. Now, I get it. You could have went out and got a Brian Flores, somebody more established, but they have a working relationship between him and Dan Quinn. I think that's very important. The chemistry and the working relationship is already there. So I think we're going to be all right going forward. I think they really did a good job rebuilding this team as far as the front office and personnel wise.
Now, I'm not sure if you touched on it or not, but Brian Johnson was hired from the Eagles.
Yeah,
And the funny thing is that as soon as that we heard this, a lot of these fans from other teams, and probably even from our same team, honestly, were posting stuff on social media that's like, get ready for nothing but bubble screens and slants and stuff like this. And I don't know how many times that I was posting on there. I was like, you do realize he's not the offensive coordinator.
thank you.
He was hired as the passing game coordinator,
Yeah,
and so I know someone else was like very adamant about he's going to control the entire passing game. It's like, no, the pass game coordinator helps the offensive coordinator with the game plan, with
yeah,
developing whatever pass plays that the offensive coordinator wants to institute, and he's basically an extension of that, basically coaching that side of your offense, but he's not going to be a huge influence per se as far as what the game plan is going to be, because we gotta understand there's a new type of offense that's going to be installed in Washington, this air raid offense, and so it's really going to be Cliff Kingsbury who's going to be teaching his offensive coaching staff how that air raid offense works his style, because it's not going to be the exact same down to a T type of offense. Kingsbury, and I think you alluded to it in one of the other videos, Brandon, is that there's still a pretty strong running game within
yeah.
his version of the air raid. So there's going to be differences with that. But, the only thing I think that you and I haven't heard anything about is the offensive line coach. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I definitely feel like that position needs to be upgraded like crazy, and maybe we'll hear something this week. But I'm with you. I think it's a solid coaching staff so far, and it was one thing that I felt that Dan Quinn had an advantage of over Brian or Ben Johnson or even Mike McDonald so far. Is that he had connections within the league, and he already kind of knew who that he wanted to bring along with him if he got that next opportunity, and we're seeing it. He's making some tremendous hires. He's building an excellent staff, and so far we haven't really heard that of McDonald in Seattle. What type of staff? I mean, we took their special teams coach, and knowing that, and this special teams coach had the Seattle Seahawks special teams. I think they were ranked. I haven't looked at it again, but I thought I saw that they were ranked third.
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, that is pretty awesome. If we can get a top 10 defense again, we have special teams that's ranked in the top five. We can work on that offense with Cliff Kingsbury, whoever we wind up starting as a quarterback. I
yeah.
mean, we're building something special here. But switching gears, speaking of building, it also comes down to, okay, what free agents do you keep? What free agents do you pick up? And then, of course, what are you going to do in the draft? And again, as I seem to allude to in every single video, Adam Peters wants to build the team through the draft and supplement with free agency. But with that being said, I think a lot of times when you supplement through free agency, the first thing that you want to look at is what free agents do you have on your team right now that you want to retain. And out of everybody, it seems like the biggest name that people are looking at is Cameron Curl. So, do you think Cameron Curl has done enough for us to pay him a good contract to keep him in Washington?
Oh, good question, man. As much as it pains me to say this, no. And I am very high on Cam Curl, but I'll say this: his lack of playmaking skills is what really concerns me. He obviously, if you look at the safety room, he's the best out of the bunch. I mean, you really don't know what you have in Quan Martin. Derek Forrest, he's more of a bruiser, not really a coverage guy. And Percy Butler, the jury's still out. So he's definitely has probably the biggest upside. But again, playmaking, maybe I'm spoiled because I had Sean Taylor on this team at one point, and then
Yeah.
many other guys like Landry's another example. We've had good safeties in DC. So, but it's I wouldn't be upset if they re-signed him because I think he definitely has high upside. And I mean, looking around, what round he was drafted at, definitely is a good story about developing talent at the lower rounds. But his like I said, his lack of playmaking in the defensive side, man, is I wouldn't give him premium money to be honest with you. If it's a reasonable contract, yeah, I can see that. But I mean, even if you look at franchise tagging him, it's going to cost us $17.2 million. So I mean, it's one of those things where either it's going to be a team friendly deal or maybe you let him walk. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm high on Cam Curl, but not at premium money because I kind of want to see more from him as far as playmaking on the defensive side, the secondary.
I really liked Cameron Curl in his rookie season. He showed us
Yeah,
something there in the rookie season. Turning the ball over, just making really good plays. And then this season rolls around. I know he's had some injuries. He's had to attend to as well.
yeah,
But I'm kind of with you. It's like I think the defense though, as a whole, just kind of went away, and so I think that really hurt the value of guys like Cam Curl because you really didn't hear his name called a whole lot, and
yeah.
I don't know how much of that was just the total collapse of the defense, or if Curl maybe regressed some after his injury. But it's kind of a situation where it's like, yeah, I'm kind of with you in a little bit as far as I don't think he necessarily showed us enough to give him this mega deal.
Yeah.
But if he's willing, if he wants to stay in Washington because he feels like that there's something special being built here, and we don't go out and draft his replacement or find a safety in free agency that we feel like is an upgrade, then maybe he might be interested in a hometown discount. I don't know. But, you know, if he had the same type of season that he had like in his rookie season a few years ago,
Yeah.
I'd be like, we have got to keep him. And I'm with you. I love the guy. I want him to make his money, but I also want him to be a big time safety.
Yeah.
And maybe if he does stay in Dan Quinn's defense, he will become a big time safety. But just to me, overall, I think it's just been kind of an unfortunate year for any of the free agents in Washington because of just how bad everything was.
Yeah.
And so, wanting to pay these guys big money, it's like it really didn't help us much out with this. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm thinking of other guys like Antonio Gibson. I mean, it's guys that I
Yeah.
like. But, Curtis Samuel, it's guys like that I like, but I'm not sure should we keep them around. Um, on the offensive side, I would probably say maybe one of those two I'd keep around just because if you're going to be starting a rookie quarterback, then you need all the weapons you can possibly get. Antonio Gibson seems to be more of that Swiss Army knife type of uh, player that I would like to keep. Seems like he's been okay as far as his fumbling issues. But Curtis Samuel, I mean, I really feel like that was a missed opportunity overall with him because he just never really did a lot in Washington, and he had that opportunity. I think he had the potential, and part of it's probably play calling. Part of it might have been him just kind of being like, this is just not really turning out the way it should be, and then his injuries he had to deal with. So overall, as far as the free agents go, especially Cam Curl, I'm with you. I think that if he's re-signed, I'll be extremely happy. If he's not, then I trust that this front office is looking at upgrading and maybe bringing in somebody younger. Now I know he's not old, but you know what I'm saying. Just um, bringing in someone who they feel like might fit the mold a little bit better with their defense. Um, but and we will talk a little bit more, folks, about free agency, especially as we get closer, because you know there's some free agents out there I've looked at, and I'm sure there's some free agents that Brandon has also looked
Oh yeah.
at as well. So we're going to do some videos on that. What I also want to talk about, though, is rumors and just rumors here, rumors there. I think some of the rumors, you know, the fans start, and then some of the rumors you hear from uh, some of the talking heads that don't really follow the team like you would a Ben Stanzing or John Kim or anybody like that. But you know the rumors about Washington should you know trade up to get Caleb Williams, and what I'm hearing from I believe it was either Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter. Honestly, sometimes I think those dudes are one and the same, but uh, but you know, they were talking about that it's kind of, it doesn't really seem like it may be a likely thing that Washington would give up the moon and the stars to move up to number one. That they're more likely, if they do move at all, that they're probably going to move down. But it's more likely that you may see them staying put and drafting a quarterback at number two. Um, what do you think about all that? Do you think that there's any smoke at all to the idea of Washington moving up to draft Caleb Williams?
Oh, good question. Good question. Right before I move on to that, I was going to touch base real quick about Curtis Samuel and Antonio Gibson. I'm with you. I think that you retain one of the two. I think Antonio Gibson can definitely be your Swiss Army knife. Looking at Curtis Samuel, I'm moving on, and because this is a really deep wide receiver draft. I'm sliding Jahan Dotson to the slot because his size, I think he's best suited as a slot receiver. And then you gotta go get a receiver the opposite of Terry McLaurin. So I definitely agree with you on those points, man. Rumors, yeah, there's a lot of rumors, man. Obviously, the relationship between Cliff Kingsbury and Caleb Williams, yeah, there could be something to that. Obviously, you see pretty much three main scenarios. Either the Chicago goes another way. Maybe it's Marvin Harrison Jr. trying to find another receiver opposite DJ Moore, and maybe they have a confidence in Justin Fields being the guy, and maybe Caleb Williams is naturally slides as a two. Us trading up and us sliding back and maybe going left tackle and maybe trying to get a quarterback late in the draft. I mean, that's a lot of good scenarios. I would say this: there's something to the relationship to Kingsbury and Caleb Williams. I'll say that. Because if you see the whole process of what the Commanders have gone through, with hiring Bob Myers and the others associate, the connections got is Adam Peters. You know what I mean? So connections matter. And I know there was connections to Ben Johnson, but that's a whole nother conversation with the whole Ben Johnson mess. But I think there's a connection to there. Chicago has shown that they do have a little confidence in Justin Fields. And it's kind of like the situation where Sam Howell is, do we bolster our old line and see if he can do better? Maybe they take that approach. Like I said, maybe they go get Marvin Harrison Jr. because obviously from an athletic standpoint, he's the best athlete in the draft. So maybe you pair him with DJ Moore, give him Justin Fields more weapons. So I could see maybe a drop to number two with Caleb Williams. I could see that. But Chicago's in a situation where it's like maybe they draft Caleb Williams and put Justin Fields on the spot and say, look, perform or we'll trade you. Maybe that's the type of deal. So you could see that where we had to settle for either Drake May or Jane Daniels. But it's going to be interesting. It really is. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot going on in the draft. Because you really can't pinpoint a clear route. You know what I mean? Like in most drafts with this team, normally you say, all right, this is what we need, and this is probably where we're going to go get. Very few drafts has this team really been crafty. Early on, in a year ago, when we got Samuel and we were drafts, we've got more than one player. I think that one year where we had Jason Campbell and we picked up that corner out of Auburn. So we used to be crafty. Carlos Rogers, there you go. But as of lately, the last 10 years, it's just we kind of both, what we needed or got depth choices. But there's no really clear route, man. I can see K. Williams dropping. I can see us trading back. It's kind of smoke and mirrors right now. I can't really pinpoint what direction we want to go to. And I think that's a good thing because again, I've said this a lot, man, is that we have options. we have the ability to kind of have smoke and mirrors and kind of keep other teams in the dark because out of all the scenarios, I can see us building around Sam Howell. I can see us going to get May. I can see us get Daniels. We have a lot of choices. So, to kind of answer your question, I kind of a long-winded answer, but I don't know, man. That's tough because you very well could see Caleb Williams drop. Obviously, he prefers Washington. It's been noted as saying that he does prefer the Washington Commanders over the Chicago Bears, and maybe it's an Eli Manning moment where the team says, look, he doesn't want to be here. Maybe we go ahead and get another receiver. I can see that. So we have options. But I think the biggest thing is I think we're going to be happy at quarterback regardless. If we stick with Sam Howell, we'll be happy because I think we have a guy who's shown that he can start. Drake May, I think, can do well here. I think Caleb Williams will be good here. I think Jaden Daniels will be good here, even though I do think that out of the three, he's going to have to be developed a little bit. But either way, I think we're good at quarterback.
Yeah, continuing on with the rumors, especially as it pertains to these quarterbacks in the draft, and then of course Justin Fields. Um, what I heard today was that it really, as far as I guess the most NFL ready, um, there of course they're talking about Caleb Williams and actually Drake May. There was some talks about Drake May actually wind up being the number one pick. And of course, all of this is going to change probably a million times.
Yeah.
Once you get past the combine and all these pro days and things like that. But and then what I've also heard is that after you get past Caleb Williams and Drake May, there is a certain amount of drop off in talent, and I know that's going to really pee off a lot of the Jaden Daniels fans because right now a lot of people have jumped onto the Jaden Daniels bandwagon and feel like he needs to be drafted at number two, and he may be, but a lot of people are feeling that he is more of the best out of the mix of like Bo Nix and Penix and quarterbacks like that. I haven't got to see Jaden Daniels play that much, so honestly, I don't know. I don't really have a dog in the fight other than I want us to pick the best quarterback that's going to help develop this team, that he's going to turn into a franchise quarterback, and we can have him hopefully for, 10, 15 years or something like that, 10, 12 years, whatever. So I don't really care if it's Caleb Williams, if it's Drake May, if it's, Jaden Daniels, or if it's some of the other guys like Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. A lot of people said to look out for J.J. McCarthy, that people are really kind of, sleeping on him. So, for me, I think the whole time with these videos, I've always kind of preached let's look at the biggest picture and let's look at all options because comments I read, a lot of people are so close-minded on it's got to be Caleb Williams, it's got to be a quarterback at number two regardless. And, some of them start to get a little offensive after a while and want to start using, name calling and things like that. If you don't agree with that, you're a clown if you don't think that we should draft it number two. Yeah. And my thinking is, well, let's look at the whole big picture because, again, you can't ignore what Adam Peters has said. He said that he builds through the draft. So when you have a front office who believes that the draft is what is really ultimately used to build your team, then more draft picks that you have, the better chance you're going to build that team sooner. And they're not going to want to take 5 years to do this. I mean, there's already been a change from we got to rebuild this team to no. It's not rebuilding, it's recalibrating. Dan Quinn, Now that we're going with the Ron Rivera isms, now we're going to go with the Dan Quinn isms. So he likes recalibration, so we're going to go with that. Enough of the player flex, right? But so if that's the case, then it sounds like no, we're building this team to be winners as soon as we possibly can. Yeah. And how do you do that? Well, if you have the number two pick, you have that option that someone wants to move up to number two and they're willing to pay you a king's ransom, you do that. And maybe You draft a quarterback later on in the first round. Maybe it winds up being a J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels if he lasts that long. I think the biggest thing is, again, folks, we've got to keep in mind that we are looking at these quarterbacks based on prospect. There is
Yeah.
not a sure thing with any of these quarterbacks. All of them could be bust, or all of them could be future Hall of Famers. We just don't simply know until they start taking snaps on an NFL field. And so I think it's always the smart approach to look at every option that can possibly be there. And like you said, Brandon, even including the idea that Sam Howell remains the starter. And a lot of people just turned on Sam Howell like crazy.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but the thing is, you got to look at the big picture with that. When you have a offensive coordinator who's calling these pass plays, and it's not just quick pass plays. It was like 5, 6, 7 step drop backs for Sam Howell every single time. It seemed like for the first
Yeah.
4 or 5 games, and so not to really keep on bashing on EB because I'm really not. I really didn't want to do that. I think that EB is deserving to have a great coaching spot here in the
Yeah.
NFL somewhere. But I'm just saying that he didn't really fit, I think, what Washington needed, what Sam Howell needed.
Yeah.
When you're a young quarterback, you're starting for the first year, you need an offensive coordinator that's going to help you out, that's going to build up your running game, that's going to give you some confidence, some higher percentage passes, and get things moving that way. And that's simply not what Eric Bieniemy did for Sam Howell. So that's what I tell folks. You need to keep your mind open to that because Howell did show us some very good throws. And
Yeah.
he did play really well. He's leading the league at one point, I think, in passing yards.
Yeah.
But, I realized they regressed, but everything regressed. It wasn't
Yeah.
just Sam Howell. Everything regressed. So you got to keep that. You got to keep your mind open on all of that. So as far as the rumors of us moving up, personally, I don't like the idea because
No.
I think it's a Dan Snyder move to give another team a king's ransom for one quarterback. Yes, he may be the best quarterback since Tom Brady, but he may not be. He may wind up being a bust. We don't know. And then you've set your team back several years because of that. So I think, if anything, if the Commanders do move, they're going to trade down. They're going to get some more draft picks. They're going to wind up drafting probably one of the left tackles in the first round, and then go back and maybe trade back into the first round and grab one of the quarterbacks, probably a J.J. McCarthy or somebody like that.
Yeah.
That I think that's probably what they would do more than anything else. But then again, I don't know. When it's all said and done, they may wind up having Justin Fields as their starting quarterback, which, I did a video on that, and then of course, someone, of course, complained that I did a whole video on Justin Fields, and I'm like, well, this video is based on Justin Fields and Caleb Williams. What do you expect? So, but overall, we're gonna be hearing some really strange rumors and some that actually make a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, like you said, Brandon, it's smoke and mirrors. We really don't know what the Commanders are going to do, and I think that's great. Although I will say, I think Doug Williams kind of let the cat out of the bag when they interviewed him the other day, and I think he pretty much signaled that the Commanders are going to draft a quarterback. So I'll know next time. If I got to keep some secrets, I'm not going to talk to Doug Williams at all. I'm going to talk to somebody else. But God bless him. I think he probably alluded that the Commanders probably are, picking a quarterback at number 2. And so at that point, I think what we'll probably do is maybe discuss in the next few episodes. Okay, number 2, is it a lock for Jaden Daniels or is it a lock for Drake May? And why would we choose one or the other over top of the other one? A lot of people seem to be jumping off of the Drake May bandwagon, a lot of fans, but then again, a lot of the scouts are possibly said that he could even go number 1. So I'm a little confused on that. But anyway, at any rate, folks, a lot of things are going on in Washington Commanders land. A lot of good things for a change. We're getting a great, I consider it, at least on paper, a great coaching staff being formed
Yeah.
by Dan Quinn. Not sure if you had had the same coaching staff with the Ben Johnson right now. We don't know who that Mike McDonald is bringing
Okay.
in Seattle. So there you go. At least we know that Dan Quinn is building the right coaching staff around him, and that's what he's going to need to do to succeed. We don't know what's going to happen with Cam Curl. Maniacs here seem to be in agreement that if he goes, he goes. I don't
Yep.
think it's necessarily you're looking at any of these free agents as they have got to stay here or we're going to suffer. I think they're all honestly. I think they all could be gone, and
Yeah.
or they could stay. So I think again you'll see Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, all of them sit down and really look at the roster. But Brandon, I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to end this podcast. But what else do you have for us before we leave?
Oh no, I'm good, man. Like you said, very, very intrigued and excited for the season, uh, or really the all season, then the season, man, because we have a lot of options, and I have a lot of confidence in this front office, this ownership group, and this coaching staff. And this has been the first time in a long time where I can say that I have the utmost confidence from the top down. But it feels good. New owner, new GM, new coaching staff. Let's go. I'm excited.
It's a new era in Washington for sure. And it's going to take a while for everybody to really understand that and to accept that and to believe it. But it really is, folks. We're turning over a new leaf. I think things are on the up. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video, this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to it on one of the other podcast apps, just give us a like. Subscribe to us, help us out any way you possibly can. Let us also know what you may want the Maniacs to cover in our next episodes, and we will be happy to cover it for you. That being said, folks, this is Greg Sykes along with Brandon Scott. We will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.